Let's start in Chicago, the Windy City. But in January, the wind doesn't just blow, it screams. It howls off Lake Michigan like a dying animal, cutting through coats, through skin, settling deep into your bones. It was one of those nights where the snow wasn't falling, it was driving sideways. In a forgotten corner of the industrial district, where the streetlights had burned out years ago, stood a small brick building. The sign above the door was peeling, the paint cracked by decades of neglect. It read, Harrison's Dollhouse. Harrison was a man carved from ice. He was a recluse, a ghost in his own life. He spent every waking hour in that basement workshop. The air down there was thick, heavy. It smelled of sawdust, potent varnish, and something else. Something sweet and chemical, like formaldehyde masking the scent of rotting meat. The neighborhood knew Harrison, or rather, they knew of him. They knew his tragedy. 6 months ago, his wife, Lily, had vanished. Lily was the opposite of Harrison. She was warm, she was radiant. She was the only splash of color in his gray world. The police said she ran away. They said she packed a bag and left for a better life. Harrison didn't argue. He didn't cry. He just went back to his basement, and he started working, harder than ever before. Mrs. Jenkins lived next door. She was an old woman, plagued by insomnia, who spent her nights staring out her window at the empty street. That Tuesday night, through the swirling blizzard, she saw a light flick on in Harrison's shop window. Harrison was setting up a new display. Mrs. Jenkins wiped the fog from her glass. She squinted, her heart hammered against her ribs. The new mannequin sitting in the window, it wasn't just a doll. It was Lily. It was perfect, too perfect. The curve of the jawline, the exact shade of blonde hair, the way the hands rested gently on the lap. It was wearing Lily's favorite blue dress, the silk one she wore on their anniversary. Mrs. Jenkins whispered to herself in the dark, "He's lost his mind. He's built a shrine to her." The next morning, the snow had stopped, leaving the city buried in white silence. Mrs. Jenkins walked past the shop. She couldn't help herself. She stopped. She pressed her face against the cold glass of the display window. She looked into the doll's eyes. They were glass, surely, but they had depth. They had sorrow. And then she saw it. A tiny, faint circle of condensation on the inside of the glass, right in front of the doll's mouth. Dolls don't breathe, do they? Mrs. Jenkins banged on the door. Harrison, open up." The door opened with a groan. Harrison stood there. He looked like a corpse himself, gaunt, pale. His eyes were red-rimmed. "Go home, Mrs. Jenkins," he rasped. His voice was like grinding stones. "That doll," Mrs. Jenkins stammered. It looks like it's breathing." Harrison smiled. A slow, terrible smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Lily is preserving her beauty," he whispered. "She decided to stay. Forever. She will never leave me again." Mrs. Jenkins ran. She called the police. When Officer Miller arrived, the sun was setting, casting long, bloody shadows across the snow. He kicked the door in. The smell hit him instantly. It wasn't just chemicals anymore. It was the undeniable, sweet stench of decay. He found Harrison in the basement. He wasn't running. He was just standing there, holding a heat gun and a bucket of liquid wax. Officer Miller walked up to the display window from the inside. He approached the Lily doll. He reached out a gloved hand. He touched her cheek. It wasn't plastic. It wasn't wood. It was soft. It yielded under his finger. He shone his flashlight into her eyes, and he screamed inside his head. The pupil constricted in the light. Lily wasn't a doll. She wasn't dead. Not fully. Harrison had paralyzed her. He had replaced her blood with a preservative fluid. He had severed her vocal cords. And then, he had coated her living skin in layers of translucent wax. She had been sitting in that window for 3 days, unable to move, unable to scream, watching the neighbors walk by, watching the snow fall, trapped inside her own body, screaming in a silence that was louder than thunder. As the ambulance crew carefully moved her rigid body, Officer Miller looked around the basement. He shone his light into the dark corners. There were 5 other dolls, 5 other women, all beautiful, all silent. And as the light swept over them, Miller swore just for a second. He saw them all blink at once.
It was the dead of night in a sleepy town in New England. Outside it was raining cats and dogs. Dr. William Vance, a top-tier neurosurgeon, was chilling in his bedroom, trying to wind down with a book. Just as he was about to hit the hay, his dusty old landline started ringing off the hook. Nobody uses landlines anymore. It was creepy as hell. Vance picked up the receiver, totally annoyed.
Hello?
Mr. William Vance, the brain doc.
The voice on the other end was raspy, sounded like a chain smoker.
Yeah, speaking. Who the hell is this at midnight?
Name's Arthur Sterling. Sorry to buzz you this late, doc. But this is serious business.
Vance glanced at the clock.
Look, pal, I don't know you, and I'm not in the mood for game.
But I know you, doc. You're 55. Moved to this fancy crib in Connecticut 3 months ago because your old place burned to the ground. Your wife kicked the bucket 10 years ago. And your kid, Aaron, he's living the dream out in San Fran. Am I ballparking it?
A chill ran down Vance's spine.
Who are you? A Fed or some creepy PI?
Let's just say I did my homework. You want to hear me out, or should I hang up?
Vance was freaked out but curious.
Spill it.
Rewind 7 years, back in Boston. Your kid Aaron and my boy Stephen, they were tight back at Harvard. Best buds.
Steven? Yeah, sounds familiar, but I didn't know he fell in with a sketchy crowd.
Steve was a good kid, but he got hooked on gambling. Bad. He was deep in the hole with some loan sharks in Atlantic City. They were going to break his legs, or worse. He went to Aaron for a bailout.
Aaron, my kid was a broke college student. He didn't have that kind of dough.
He didn't have cash, but he had access. Remember that antique gold watch you had in your safe? The Victorian bling your granddad got from some tycoon? The one that vanished into thin air?
That watch, the cops said it was a break-in.
Nah, it was an inside job, Doc. Aaron swiped it. He gave it to Steve to pawn so the mob wouldn't whack him.
Dr. Vance sat there stunned.
You gotta be kidding me.
Steve never sold it, though. He held on to it. The guilt was eating him alive. He wanted to clear his conscience. He wanted to square things up with you.
So what? He's gonna mail it back.
He's bringing it back.
Wait, what? Where is he?
He's pretty much at your doorstep.
Vance stood up, angry now.
At this hour? No way. I ain't opening the door for some stranger. Tell him to come back in the morning.
You don't need to unlock the door, Doc. Arthur's voice sounded distant, almost static-filled.
And you clearly haven't checked the news. Turn on the TV or check your phone.
What are you talking about?
Massive pileup on I-95 this afternoon. A sports car got totaled by a semi-truck. 2 fatalities, identified as Arthur and Stephen Sterling.
Vance almost dropped the phone.
You're telling me you're...
Yeah, Doc. I'm dead. And my boy. He's walking up your stairs right now.
Bullshit.
Listen, Doc. Just listen.
Through the phone, Vance heard it, the creaking of the floorboards downstairs. Heavy boots. Someone was coming up, but the front door was locked tight.
He ain't gonna hurt you. He just wants to leave the watch in the guest room. He needs to clean his slate.
The footsteps reached the hallway. They stopped right outside Vance's door. Vance's heart was pounding out of his chest. Then, the sound moved toward the guest room. Silence.
Good night, Doc.
The line went dead. Vance sat there for 5 minutes, sweating bullets. Finally, he got the guts to check. He tiptoed to the guest room. The door was slightly ajar. He pushed it open and flicked on the switch. Empty. Not a soul, but on the center table something was glistening. Vance walked over. It was the gold watch. There was a nasty smudge of blood on the glass face. And the hands were frozen in time, stopped exactly at 4:15 p.m., the time of the crash.
Kansas, the breadbasket of America, miles of cornfields that stretch out like a golden ocean. But oceans have monsters, and so do cornfields. Hard, bitter tone. Joseph was a hard man, a bitter man. He lived alone on his family farm. His crops were failing. The crows were eating everything. And his brother Michael? Michael had run away 5 years ago. That's what Joseph told the town. That's what he told the sheriff. Darker, descripted, to save his corn, Joseph bought a scarecrow from a traveling antique show. It was a hideous thing, a burlap sack for a head, stitched together with thick, black twine. Its clothes were stained with old mud, or something darker. He planted it right in the middle of the south field. The first night, Joseph's dog, Buster, wouldn't stop barking. He stood on the porch, staring into the dark corn, the hair on his back standing up. "Shut up, you stupid mutt! It's just straw!" The next morning, the crows were gone, but so was Buster. Joseph searched the barn, the silo, the porch. Nothing. That evening, as the sun set, bleeding red across the sky, Joseph looked out at the field. The scarecrow was there, but it looked closer. Yesterday it was 50 yards out. Today it looked like it was 30. Wind must have blown it.
That night, Joseph woke up. Silence. Absolute silence. No crickets, no wind. Then, scratch, scratch, scratch on the side of the house. Joseph grabbed his shotgun. He walked to the window. The moon was full. The Scarecrow wasn't in the field. It was standing in the yard, right below his window. Its arms were spread wide, like it was welcoming him, and sticking out of the burlap stitching where its mouth should be was a dog's collar, Buster's collar. "You devil! I'm gonna blow you back to hell!" Fast, action-packed. Boom! The Scarecrow took the hit. Dust and straw flew into the air, but it didn't fall. Instead, a sound came from inside it. Not a monster's roar, but a low, agonizing human moan. "Joey, it hurts. Why did you do it, Joey?" Joseph dropped the gun. He knew that voice. He ran to the Scarecrow. He tore at the burlap mask with his bare hands. He ripped the stitching open. Inside, underneath the straw, was a face, a human face. Pale, preserved like leather, and twisted in agony. It was Michael, his brother. The brother Joseph had killed 5 years ago in a drunken rage and buried in this very field. The earth had refused to keep him. The corn had fed on him, and now it had given him back. "You buried me deep, Joey, but the roots, they found me. We are hungry." The Scarecrow's arms snapped closed around Joseph like a bear trap. The straw turned into vines, tightening, squeezing. Joseph couldn't breathe. He felt his ribs crack. The next morning, the neighbors drove by. They waved. Standing in the middle of the field were 2 scarecrows. One was old and tattered. The new one looked fresh. It was wearing Joseph's overalls. And if you looked closely, the eyes weren't buttons. They were blue, terrified, human eyes, staring endlessly at the farmhouse they could never enter again.
Let's hit the road, Route 66, the Mother Road. It stretches across America like a scar. But there is a stretch in the Arizona desert that locals call the Dead Zone. No gas stations, no lights, just endless blacktop and coyotes. Sam was a trucker, a lifer. He'd been pushing an 18-wheeler for 20 years. He lived on coffee, cigarettes, and diesel fumes. It was 3 a.m., the witching hour, the time when the veil between the living and the dead is thinnest. Sam's eyes were heavy. The white lines on the road were starting to hypnotize him. Suddenly, his headlights caught something on the shoulder. A girl, hitchhiking. She was wearing a white dress, in the middle of the desert, in the middle of the night. Sam knew the rules. You don't stop. But something made him hit the air brakes. The truck hissed and groaned to a halt. "Hop in," Sam grunted as she opened the passenger door. She climbed up. She was pale, impossibly pale. Her name, she said, was Emily. She didn't look at him. She just stared straight ahead at the dark road. "Where are you headed?" Home, just down the road. Building the loop. Start slow, then slightly increase the pace. Sam put the truck in gear. They drove. The miles ticked by. Sam checked his watch. 3:15 a.m. He drove for what felt like an hour. He checked his watch again. 3:15 a.m. Piece of junk. He looked out the window. He passed an old abandoned gas station with a flickering neon sign that said, "Eat." He kept driving. 10 minutes later, he passed the same gas station, the same flickering sign. Deja vu. He drove faster. The engine roared. The speedometer hit 80. 10 minutes later, the gas station again. What is going on? We're going in circles. Emily, where do you live? Slow, agonizingly slowly, Emily turned her head toward him. When she had climbed in, she was a pretty young woman. Now, her skin was gray. It was tightening against her skull. Her eyes were sinking back into her head. We aren't going in circles, Sam. We aren't moving at all. Look at the odometer. We've gone 50 miles. Look in the mirror, Sam. Look behind us. Sam looked into the large side view mirror. The red taillights of his truck illuminated the road behind them. About 5 miles back, there was a wreck. A massive 18-wheeler had jackknifed and rolled over. It was engulfed in orange flames. Black smoke blocked out the stars. Sam squinted. He saw the company logo on the side of the burning truck. It was his logo. And inside the crushed cabin, he saw a body, slumped over the wheel, burning. No, no! I'm right here! I'm sitting right here! Emily, or the thing that looked like Emily, pointed a bony, skeletal finger at the wreck. You fell asleep, Sam. At 3 a.m. You drifted off the road. You died on impact. Loud and overwhelming, the truck cab started to get hot. Unbearably hot. The smell of burning diesel and melting rubber filled Sam's nose. The windshield melted away. The desert night was replaced by a wall of fire. Sam wasn't driving home. He was already there. And he would be driving this stretch of burning road forever.